Yeah. Wake up with coffee and sports. Sunrise glow, listen coast to coast. A flow like you know.
Offensively, who made them? Oh, Patrick Mahomes.
Sideline to sideline with plays to show. This network's got the spark.
When you put up 300 yards rushing against someone, that you got your butt whooped.
I feel like I would have liked to see Oregon Ohio State in the semis, not the quarters. So I think some reseeding is probably where I would change. But
they're out of their mind. They're going to do this 3 quarterbacks in a row.
Here's the crazy.
I just can't take it.
First keep flying high, fans cheering loud, and one podcast moving through the crowd. Meaty boys brawling, no holds barred loud. This wire life never in doubt. Tune into the vibe.
That's my bold prediction for the show. Devin Booker in the next 3 years, he will be a Houston Rocket.
Because I still think Seth is still at the top of his game. I do. I think he's right there. Who knows? Maybe not this year, but one time soon. Why wouldn't we potentially see Seth and Roman?
Tune in the vibe. Where are you at? Sports Centers. Got me on the mic now. Let's spill the tea. Talking courtside dreams from history. Legends on the blacktop now and then. From Wilt to Steph, we hit it again. Better chimes in, let's go deep. Young bloods rising, can't skip a beat. Ruppy prospects with fire in their eyes. Draft night suckers and hoop dream high. Wire to wire, bring the heat. Podcast magic can't be beat. Do better, but roll better. We're hoop heads, trendsetters.
What's poppin', y'all? It is your boy, Guardy3, and welcome to the And One Podcast. And, of course, joining me, just like every week, he is the greatest co-host of all time. He is Mo Betta. How you doing, Mo?
I'm doing great, Brett, on Thursday night. We're talking hoops. Can't get better than that. Let's get into it.
Absolutely. Let's say, you know how it is. You know how we like to start this thing. If you're just tuning in, welcome. We start every show with our underrated player of the week. So, Mo, who do you got this week for your underrated player of the week?
I think for my underrated player of the week, I'm going to go with an old school guy. Point guard for the San Antonio Spurs, a former point guard, Johnny Moore. Johnny Moore was an old school playmaker. He put together 5 straight seasons where he averaged over 9 or more assists per game, over 2 steals per game. He was a dog on defense, a great facilitator, great teammate. Played with the Iceman. Played with guys like Artis Gilmore. Like, he was a big part of that Spurs team that was challenging the Showtime Lakers in the early 80s. So shout out to Johnny Moore. Very much in the like of Maurice Cheeks when it comes to old school playmakers.
Hey, I think that's a great name to bring up. I had somebody a little older school in mind too, Mo. Well, a little more recent. My guy, shout out to Rashard Lewis, old Sonic / Magic forward.
Nice.
We talk about a guy at his peak, went for 25 over a steal a game, 39% from 3. For all you advanced analytic nerds, true shooting percentage of 58% at the time league average was sitting at a 53 around. So he was at the end of the day, he was ahead of his time when it came to the stretch 4. Obviously, a lot of people know what he did in Orlando in 2009, helping Dwight make the finals. So my underrated player of the week, Rashard Lewis.
I like that. I'm a big fan of Rashard Lewis. He was ahead of the game at the time. I remember back in the day, in his heyday, in his prime, what he and Ray Allen did as a tandem, they were nasty. So yeah, shout out to Rashard Lewis.
Hey, what's good, Sajin? Say what's good, Kyle. Mo, I thought we'd have a little fun to start out the episode, because speaking of Rashard Lewis and Johnny Moore, Mo, I got inspired to do something fun. Now, I had a graphic for this, but kind of looked a little awkward, so I'm probably just going to read this off. Who would win 21st century Spurs versus the 21st century Thunder? And I'm going 7-game series, so just not a one-off. Who do you think would win in a series between these two teams? So, Mo, my starting lineup I got for the San Antonio Spurs using only 21st century. You're right, Rashard Lewis would have made big money today.
Agreed.
Say we got Tony Parker, Danny Green, Kawhi Leonard, Wemby, and Tim Duncan. We're pretty much saying, hey, you remember the 2014 Spurs? Swap out Boris Dio. Let's throw in Wemby.
That's that lineup. I mean, 4 of those guys are lockdown defenders. And what Tim Duncan and Wemby could do, that might be the ultimate twin towers. There's one thing if you have 2 big men that can clog the lane, rebound, and block shots, but Wemby can be on the perimeter doing that kind of damage. Wemby can come from the weak side. Can you imagine Tim Duncan bodying somebody up and then Wemby coming from the weak side to snatch the ball out the air? Like, that's crazy.
No, absolutely. Of course, I was going to throw Manu in the starting lineup, but decided to move him to the bench. I pretty much picked the 10 players and tried to put them based on fit. Right. So, bench, we got Fox, Manu, Bruce Bowen, LaMarcus Aldridge, and David Robinson. I promise you, I did not forget about the Admiral, but in this exercise, it's 21st century onward, so this is like 2000 David Robinson, not like 1995. So we're going to let him anchor the bench unit with De'Aaron Fox, Manu, and LaMarcus. Give them a defensive anchor.
That's a nice squad still, though. You still got David Robinson, Aldridge. You're bringing more size. He could still score. Aldridge definitely could score at a high level. Then you got Manu who can help run things. De'Aaron Fox is a big-time scorer. Like the bench is not as good defensively, but the bench can get buckets.
Absolutely. And now for the 21st century Thunder. Look, I was trying to make the fit make sense, so I promise you I did not forget about Russell Westbrook. So bear with me. Because the starting lineup I put, and I included Sonics. So from 2000 onward, we got SGA, Supersonics Ray Allen, Kevin Durant, and then you got a power forward center duo of a Chet and Ibaka.
That's kind of nice. The combination of Ibaka and Chet, it would be competitive. I'm still going with the Spurs duo, but the bucket getters you got with KD and SGA, Ray Allen, that's kind of crazy. Because if you got KD and SGA, Ray Allen is all he's got to do is play catch and shoot, and this would be peak Ray Allen who could create his own shot. So that's a scary lineup.
Oh, absolutely, and I'll let you know right now too. Since we're including Supersonics players as well, Thunder James Harden did not make the list because I was only thinking about his time with the Thunder. I got Westbrook, Peyton, J-Dub, Paul George, and Isaiah Hartenstein coming off the bench. It came down to Hartenstein or Adams for that center spot, and gave him Hartenstein.
You said Westbrook,
Gary
J-Dub, Gary Payton, Hartenstein,
and the
PG.
2019 Paul George.
That's a devastating lineup too. I mean, very competitive with Russ, because Russ was at his peak, obviously, with the Thunder. That guy's coming off your bench. He's probably the best bench player on both teams. I would argue. And then factor in Paul George, who was an MVP candidate when he was on the Thunder. That's a hell of a lineup you put together for both teams. The fan in me, I guess my best answer would be, it seems like it's a 7-game series. It seems like it goes 7. But if I have to make a choice, I would go with the Spurs to win the series. I would go with the Spurs to win the series just because they do have a championship DNA. I know that the Thunder just won the title, but Duncan, Robinson, Ginobili, Parker, they've won multiple titles. There's a championship DNA there. I would give them the edge.
No, that's fair. Like I said, I was going to put Russ in the starting lineup, but I was like, you know what? You throw him on the bench, he can dominate the ball all he wants. It just makes more sense.
Yeah. Well, I think on that team, because you said fit, him and SGA and KD don't work in the starting lineup together. So you did the right thing. He can't play with both of them in the starting lineup.
No, but I completely I agree. When I was putting this together, at first I'm like, the Thunder have like three MVPs. Like, it might be tough for the Spurs to keep up. They had Paul George, who was an MVP candidate. And then I stopped and I looked at the starting lineup thrown together for the Spurs. I'm like, this might be the one defensive slanted team in the league that could actually slow this all-time Thunder team down. Like, your only hope is pretty much to try to get Tony Parker switched on to you. Otherwise, good luck shooting over Danny Green or Kawhi Leonard. And if you beat them to the rim, you got Wemby and Tim Duncan waiting for you.
And this is like more athletic, probably peak defensively Kawhi. You're not getting by him. You're actually not getting by him. Yeah, I think it's a great series. The Spurs are going to win that series. Like I said, the fan of me wants it to go 7. I don't know if it goes 7, but I think the Spurs win the series.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I completely agree. I thought it'd be a fun little exercise to start us out. Honestly, I was really tempted just because I like him so much. I almost put Boris in over LaMarcus Aldridge, but I was like, you know what? I'll give Alame the credit. He was really good with the Spurs.
Diaw was dope, though, when he was with the Spurs. He was like Mr. Do a little bit of everything. So, yeah, I get why you would go that route. Diaw was nice with the Spurs.
And honestly, like, it would be kind of fun. It's kind of fun to imagine Boris on this team because I'm just imagining, like, trying to guard Wemby when you have the passing skills with Manu and Boris in the game. Because Wemby is such a devastating lob finisher. When you got two guys that can throw lobs from literally any direction and angle, that just sounds like nightmare fuel to try to guard.
That is nightmare fuel. Don't forget, because Wemby is such a good ball handler and he's a pretty good passer in his own right, I think you can have a lot of big-to-big setups between him and Duncan.
Oh, fair. Hey, one of the most fun part about watching those old Spurs teams kind of was the big-to-big action. Him and Tiago Splitter had really good chemistry together. Like, it was never anything crazy. They just knew exactly where each other were and where to look for each other, and the chemistry was just so good. That's
I agree.
a lot of the time when I'm looking at like two big lineups, I'm like, that's a lot of time when I'll reference. I'll be like, just learn to work together. Even if it's just like Tim Duncan and Tiago, just make sure you know where each other are at all times and make the easy passes.
Yeah, that's one of the matchups that you put together. I would pay to watch that matchup. I think it would it'd be like a long extended game of chess watching the different matchups and the adjustments.
No, fair enough. Of course. Yeah, that would be fun too. Which Thunder coach are you bringing up for the coach the Thunder for this one? I'd imagine Dagnut.
Yeah, I'm not bringing up Billy Donovan. No, I'm good. I'm good with Dagnut.
Billy Donovan's just gonna do the old Doc Rivers sort style play, like, all right, guys, figure it out there.
Exactly. Doc whistles, he yells, and then he just goes, guys, we got to play harder. That's it.
He did that again after we blew that lead to the Wizards yesterday. That made me so mad. He goes, we just weren't on the same page. It's gotta be a learning experience. I'm like, brother, we are 34 games in the season with a mainly veteran team. Like, what are we learning what are we learning? Like, what are we doing? Like, yes, you said we're not ready again for like the 5th game in a row. Whose fault is that, Doc? Come on, tell me whose fault it is that we're not ready. Maybe on the coaching staff? Or are you going to keep pushing the blame on the players? Like, dude, take some accountability, Glenn. Like, it's annoying. It drives me crazy.
So you're not wanting Doc to return next year as your head coach?
I don't want him to return tomorrow, but he's unfortunately going to be there. It'd be the happiest episode of And One next week if Doc all of a sudden got fired tomorrow.
You know, it's funny you say that because I don't think that JJ Redick's going to get fired, and I don't think he should be fired. But I do think his coaching style, it's weird to say this because JJ Redick is one of those guys, he's the flag bearer for how the current NBA is so much better than the former NBA, but his coaching style is actually more like the former NBA. It's the in-your-face yelling, the pointing the finger. Look, I think that style could have worked in another time, maybe even the early 2000s. You can't do that now. It won't work. You definitely can't be that way with established stars. They're not trying to hear that. You can't talk down to Luka or LeBron. That will not work. Look, Redick's got to rein in himself before he loses the locker room altogether. He has these big speeches, these yellings, these rantings, team meetings. What happens the next game? The Lakers win, and everybody goes, all is well. I'm like, no, not all is not well. They played the Kings. They're supposed to win if they don't have a meeting. It's the Kings. And so they beat the Kings. And then what happens after that? They play a good team. They play Detroit, and they get blown out. So nothing's changed.
I do. Some of the conversation around JJ Redick does drive me insane, right? I've seen a lot of Laker fans go, we got to fire JJ Redick. We got to fire the coach. Like, guys, when are you going to realize it's not, this isn't all, like, you can blame obviously some of the problems of the Lakers on JJ Redick, but when are you going to realize, like, majority of this is not on the coach? There's multiple things that I think are kind of wrong with what the Lakers are doing right now. I think the biggest problem is, in all reality, misallocation of assets. You got $51 million tied up into Rui Hachimura, Jared Vanderbilt, Maxi Kleber, and Gabe Vincent. Like, $51 million, that can get you a couple of role players at least, like a couple of really good ones too. And another $115 million for Reeves, Luka, and LeBron, which there's not a defender to be seen in that category. So it just feels like that they got to really just balance out their resources a lot better.
I agree. I don't think the blame. Look, if there's blame, if you're doing a blame pie, sure, I think JJ Redick should get 10%, maybe. But the truth of the matter is, I might give Rob Pelinka like 45 or 50%. He's the one that put this team together. The roster construction is terrible. The Lakers, my Lakers, and I told you this about your Bucks because it was true that they the last couple of years the Bucks were the least athletic team in the league. Well, they're not that anymore because the Lakers are in the league. The Lakers are the least athletic team in the NBA. They have nobody on the perimeter that's an elite defender. Vanderbilt competes defensively and he tries hard, but he's not an elite defender. And when you have three guys who are talented offensive players like Luka, LeBron, and Reeves, they're in your starting lineup. That means three of your starting five guys are bad defenders. And you can do all the speeches you want. You can point fingers. By the way, actually, four of your starting five are bad defenders because DeAndre Ayton's in the starting five, and he ain't guarding anybody. And he's got the motor of a 90-year-old man. He got a lot of quit in him. He has been exactly what I thought he would be when they picked him up. And that's the thing that's maddening to him. When I look at a guy like Ayton, I'm going, you could be a really, really good player. You don't have to be a star, but you could be a really, really good player in a role. And he doesn't want to do that because it requires effort and it requires work. And he's not about that. He's good. He's content with doing just enough. And I think that's one of the things that Redick was talking about. And I agree with, by the way, in his press conference. But Redick has to be realistic about the roster he's talking to. The things he wants them to be able to do night in and night out, they're not capable of doing. They're just not. And so the expectations like we could be a title contender, that's not living the reality. The Lakers, as presently constructed, they're a playoff team. They're going to get in the playoffs. They're going to lose in the first round. And then we're going to talk about all the great things they're going to do in the offseason. When they get LeBron off the books, hypothetically. realistically, I don't know if they're going to do great things when they have cap space because, again, name me a current superstar who's going to become a free agent that's going to turn around and go, man, I can't wait to play with Luka. Name that guy because I don't know him. No superstar is signing up to play with Luka and watch Luka dribble the air at the ball. They're not doing that.
I'll say it's funny because that almost that was actually going to be the next question I kind of asked you. I named this episode to throw or not to throw because a lot of people are saying Lakers should just throw the season. Wait till next year. LeBron's money comes off the books, $55 million cap space. But counter argument, you don't know who you're going to get in free agency, and two, your surrounding players aren't getting any younger. Why waste a year with the players you do have? So I guess you kind of answered the say. Would you rather wait till the offseason, or you just seeing if you could maybe make a LeBron trade right now if he's not part of your future?
Do something right now. Do something right now. I would go so far as to say this: the only guy that you shouldn't be looking to move or shouldn't be on the table is Luka. That's the only guy, and that's because he's in his prime right now. And I'm the first to tell you that Luka is a great, all-time great ball-dominant basketball player. He is. He is. It's funny because he doesn't get the grief that James Harden got when he was in his prime, but they basically do the same thing in their prime. They do the same exact thing. Matter of fact, I would argue for all the grief we give him, James Harden is a much better defender than Luka. For whatever that means. So I think I find it funny that Luka doesn't have to take on all the grief that Harden took on. I think he's a great player, but I think it's not that easy to play with him if you're a star. You brought up a point before the show that they should go out and get some dogs to put around Luka, some perimeter guys, athletic guys, some wings that could defend and make shots. I actually agree with that. He's done that before. We saw him. He did it in Dallas. He is better. It's weird to say this, but he's better as a one-man show than he is as part of a quartet. Like, think about it. When Porzingis went to Dallas, when he was in Dallas, it didn't work. And what did everybody do? They blamed Porzingis. They said, well, bro, he doesn't know how to play with Luka. Like, he knows how to play with him. The problem is when you play with him, you're watching him dribble the ball. And that's what he does. He will dominate 20, 22 seconds of the shot clock and make a decision. I don't think you can win a title that way. Plain and simple. I don't think you can win a title that way. And I know somebody's going to go, well, he went to the finals a couple of years ago. I go, right, but that was a run. That wasn't the beginning of Mavs dominating the Western Conference. It was a run. And I think Nico Harrison 100% got it wrong for his reason of trading Luka, but I understand why he traded him. My only problem with Nico is he made the wrong trade. Like if you're going to move the guy for the reasons that you said, you should have got a hell of a package in return, and you didn't get enough. So the trading of Luka wasn't a bad idea. It's what you got in return that was horrible.
The MVP. I appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Hey, we were just talking about the Sonics not too long ago. Yeah, it's funny, and getting like Anthony Davis into first back was wild. And I remember people like a lot of like Mavs fans trying to defend that. To me, they're like, okay, you got one first. How many firsts is Anthony Davis worth? He's worth like 4, so that's like getting 5 firsts for Luka. Like, no, I mean, getting 5 firsts for Luka is just getting 5 firsts for Luka. Like, that's not the equivalent of 2024 Anthony Davis, which is
right.
probably closer to what, 2, maybe 3 firsts, but
maybe 2. And look, in a weird way, if you're a Mavs fan, did it work out for you? Sure, you ended up with the number 1 pick, and you kind of got the guy that can replace Luka. Now, granted, there's no way Nico could know it was going to work out like that, but it worked out just fine.
Hey, they got Cooper Flagg.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
I do find it funny with the Hawks fans that are like now all of a sudden going like, yeah, we should trade for Anthony Davis. And I'm like, you're saying you want to trade for Anthony Davis because Porzingis is already hurt. So your solution is bringing in Anthony Davis, who isn't exactly a bill of health, let's say. So it's really funny to me, but I do think the idea of AD to the Hawks is kind of an intriguing one, though. Not gonna lie. Smarter than same guy built.
He's also the same guy that traded Luka for Anthony Davis, and what's the kid that's still on the Mavs roster that was on the Lakers? I forgot his name. He's a young kid. But he's a role player. He will always be a role player. Look, I don't know. Like I hear people say, "Well, Nico didn't trade him." Well, Nico's the GM, so I don't care if it was Nico. I don't care if it was the president of operations. I don't care if it was Jason Kidd. They did actually trade Luka for Anthony Davis, and I have no problems with them trading Luka for the reasons that Nico said, because he wasn't wrong in anything he said. They were wrong in what they got in return. That's all I said. If you were going to move somebody like that, you should have got back a king's ransom, and you got back way less than that.
So, Kyrie, yes. Daniel Gafford, yeah, sure. PJ Washington, he accidentally backed into PJ Washington. You got to remember, his first attempt was trying to trade a couple first to get Kyle Kuzma.
Facts.
When that didn't work, then he pivoted to PJ Washington. So, like, PJ Washington was the side chick. He wasn't even the main.
Yeah, but say that again. He was going after Kyle Kuzma.
I wish I would have worked.
Yeah, don't make this guy out to be a brainiac. He was going after Kyle Kuzma, and it just ended up not getting who he wanted.
And I you know what's funny? He did draft Derek Lively, but I also kind of hate Nico Harris for what he did to Derek Lively. Say if people didn't know, they before the season started, I believe it was like last year, he fired the old Mavericks training staff to bring in his guys who misdiagnosed a stress fracture in Derek Lively. Tried to make him, get him to play through it. He still felt discomfort. Then they just figured it, and then they, eventually they're like, oh well, we're gonna finally get him some CAT scans after trying to get him to play through an injury. When you probably should have just gotten the CAT scans when he was feeling some pain.
Right. It
turns out there's stress fractures in his foot, and playing on him made it worse. And now, guess what? He needs another surgery. He's out for this year. He missed a bunch of time last year. So, Nico, he did have some good moves. I can't say all of his moves are bad, obviously, but I still dislike him. And literally, a lot of it doesn't even have to do with the Luka trade. That didn't involve my team. That's whatever. I just found it funny. I don't like Nico because of him playing with Derek Lively's career. I thought that was fucked up,
right,
for lack of a better term.
And just so we're clear, I'm a diehard Lakers fan, so thanks, Nico. Like, I'm good. I'm not even a huge Luka fan, but I know that we get the better end of that deal. Look, if you're a Mavericks fan, like I said, you couldn't predict that, but you now have your next franchise guy on the roster. And really, if you're smart, you'd move Anthony Davis for assets that will help Cooper Flagg in the future. And I love Kyrie Irving, big fan of Kyrie Irving, but he will be 34 years old coming off that injury, and a lot of his game is dependent on his speed and quickness. I don't know if you need a 34-year-old Kyrie with Cooper Flagg. I would move Kyrie and Anthony Davis for guys that can help Cooper Flagg going forward.
Say, will the Lakers miss the playoffs? They'll probably get a play-in spot.
Yeah, they'll get in the playoffs. They won't be in there long, but they'll get in the playoffs.
Okay. But he's the one that hired the guys who, it turns out, didn't have all the credentials to actually be NBA doctors. That's the problem. It's not if it was just that he hired some guys that were all credentialed and everything was perfectly fine, whatever. But they hired guys that aren't credentialed to to be NBA doctors. And to be clear, this is not all on Nico Harris, everything that went wrong with the Dallas Mavericks. Pat Dermott needs to be held accountable too. But it's pretty just their hiring of that medical staff that wasn't even fully credentialed and then messing with Derek Lively's career at that point. Yeah. He also fired the guy who was considered one of the best in the business because he didn't like someone telling him no. Yeah, at that point, like how they handled that was just indefensible by both him and Dermott. Trade Kyrie for Trae Young.
Yeah, I mean, if you can make Atlanta take that deal, because that would be an upgrade for the Mavs.
Say, no,
an upgrade in the sense that he's 7 years younger than Kyrie, just for the record.
Yeah. Say, oh no, I've heard the rumors about the casinos if they move the Mavericks out of Dallas. That's one thing. I wouldn't doubt it. Like I said, I'm not trying to absolve the owners of their role because we know Dermott had a role in this. We know those guys had a role in it. So I don't fully blame Nico for everything that's gone wrong because I think the owners do have a say, but I'm also not going to completely absolve Nico because they told him to trade. You know, if they told him to trade Luka, he didn't have to take the package that only got Anthony Davis and a first and get talked down in the negotiations. So
that's the part I don't get. Not that you traded him, but what you settled for.
Yeah, that's like I said. It's interesting, but yeah, believe me, I do hold the owners accountable too for everything that's gone wrong in Dallas. Trust me. Say, I gotta do better with Mo Betta for you, by the way, Mo.
What you got?
We bringing it back, and we're bringing it back because the Minnesota Timberwolves had a game recently that Anthony Edwards walked off the court with 8 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. Look, I get it. Some games are frustrating. You don't want to stay if you're getting blown out. You can't just walk off the court, man. You can't lose your temper and the control of your emotions and just leave. He even got called out by Chris Finch after the game. Like, Anthony Edwards got to do better because that's at the end of the day, you're going to be asked to lead this Timberwolves team, and that's not what a leader does.
I don't disagree with anything that you said, but I will say this, and this I'm not defending Ant for what he did, but you can kind of see this coming. When you watch the Timberwolves play, they don't get anything easy offensively. They don't get anything easy. Everything is a grind. And I think Anthony Edwards is getting frustrated. I think he's getting frustrated because he doesn't want to be the guy that goes out and demand a trade. He doesn't want to be the guy that goes and I need more help. But they desperately need another guy who can create offense. They need a shot creator who can also score desperately. And I'm not talking about a role player. I'm talking about somebody that could be the number 2 to Ant. Because truthfully, if they were put together the right way, Julius Randle would be the third option. He's getting frustrated, and you can see it on his face. And he's looking around, and he's looking at the Spurs and what they've done, and he's looking at OKC, and even Denver upgraded on their bench. I think Anthony Edwards, look, he's got to handle it differently, but I could understand him being frustrated because he's got to do so much on a night in, night out basis because they just don't have a lot of shot creators.
That is 100% why I don't think they're going to go with some massive like Ja Morant or Trae Young trade at the deadline, but I do think there'll be players. I think the name to watch out for the Minnesota Timberwolves, I would call up the Bulls, see what the asking price on Kobe White is. Now, I think that can give you a secondary shot creator, and he's only making $18 million, so you can get a shot creation on a budget, which if you're not big game hunting, I think Kobe White's probably the best that the Minnesota Timberwolves can do.
The funny thing is, Brett, we're kind of on the same page. You said Kobe White, and I wanted to keep it in the lane of guys like Kobe White. So I thought of Kobe White. I thought of Jordan Poole, right? And I thought of Malik Monk. I think those are the types of players that won't cost you an arm and a leg, but they all are great individual scorers who can be secondary facilitators to take some pressure off of Ant. You're right. They're not going to go out and get a John Morant or a Trae Young or something like that. I don't even think they have the assets to pull something like that off, but they can go out and get somebody like a Kobe White or a Jordan Poole, even a Malik Monk. And I think that's what they need to do if they want to be competitive, not in the regular season competitive, because they'll be that, but I mean competitive in terms of being a legitimate title contender. They've got to add another shot creator to that roster.
And here's my question about the Gobert, a potential Gobert trade. Do you think the Timberwolves are scoring 140 a night? Because that's what they're going to have to score if they actually do trade Gobert. Gobert is really masking a lot of defensive problems. They're obviously starting the remaining whatever's left of Mike Conley half the time. Julius Randle's been on and off when it comes to his engagement defensively. Ant carries a heavy scoring load, so he can't always be engaged defensively. Like, I think, especially this year, I think trading Gobert might be a really bad idea because you don't have a backup plan. Unless you're ready to play the rookie, which even in a blowout, Joan isn't getting a lot of minutes right now. So you're going to pretty much be setting yourself up for, hey, small ball Naz Reid minutes. And that a small ball Naz Reid minutes hasn't been able to get a stop at all. Him and Julius Randle this year, disaster on defense. So I think if you're going to trade Gobert, you have to wait until the offseason because you can't just do this blindly. You need to make sure there's some sort of backup plan. You got to give your young big that you just drafted this year the rest of the year to develop. And if you develop far enough, I think then you consider it. But right now, this would be an absolutely disastrous move for the Timberwolves.
Unless you can pull off a 3-team trade where you get back a center with similar skill sets to Gobert or a more athletic version. A good example would be the young man that plays for the Brooklyn Nets. Nick Batum isn't the shot blocker that Gobert is, but he is a great shot blocker. And he's a good rebounder, but more importantly, he's a much better lob threat because he's a much more athletic player. So if you can pull off something like that, your team would look different, but I think he can offset the deficiencies. I'm not saying they can pull off a move like that, but you have to pursue somebody. I like what Kyle just said. Right. And the pool party, the NBA ain't ready. No, I agree. More than likely, they're going to have to wait to the offseason because there are just not a lot of guys out there that shut down the restricted area the way Gobert does. And I don't know pulling off a trade for him. And by the way, if you trade him, what are you trading him for, and what are you expecting back in return? Because starting Naz Reid at center, y'all gonna be giving up 140 a night for sure. Naz Reid, even coming off the bench, isn't a good defender, but as a starting center, he getting eaten alive. So I think you should focus on getting another shot creator in there because by the way, Gobert's minutes are down, but his efficiency is actually up. So he's played well in the minutes that he's played.
This one's NBA, sir. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think calling the Nets if they were going to entertain that trade might be the first call they make, honestly. Because if you can get like a Deron Sharp or a Nick Claxton, maybe you see if you're willing to throw in picks, maybe you can start talking Porter Jr. So that would be intriguing. I did see this. I was just about to address this one.
No. No, all respect, John. Hey, John Suggs, I appreciate you, man. Love that you keep coming out. No, the Sixers would not trade Maxey for any. The only thing they would, if they were going to make a trade with Houston, and it'd have to be a big trade, I'm assuming they would trade for Amen Thompson. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to trade for KD. He's 37, or you would trade for Şengün. But you got broken down Embiid. But no, they're not gonna trade Maxey. He's not just their best player. He's their future. Like they're gonna build around Tyrese Maxey.
No, I completely agree. I don't see a scenario which they move off Maxey. It feels like they're pretty set right now on seeing if you can build around something around Maxey, Edgecombe. Eventually, it's funny because in the half court, Paul George is a fine fit with those two when he's willing to play off the ball. Say the real question mark is going to be Joel Embiid because of his health, but I think if you're the 76ers, you look to trade. Say look to make a trade. Obviously, you look at the veterans first, but I don't see a scenario where they look to trade Maxey anytime soon.
No, the Sixers have something that a lot of teams covet. We always talk about this. They've got like 3 or 4 guys on their roster that can create their own shot. They have a luxury of guys that can create their own shot off the bounce. They're not getting rid of. We left out McCain is coming off an injury, but McCain is nice off a bounce. What's my guy that was on the Knicks? He's nice too. His name escaped me. He was on the Mavericks just last year for a hot minute. Quentin Grimes. Quentin Grimes has played well for them. Look, if the Sixers are going to make any type of move, it would have to be to move either Embiid or George. And I don't think they're going to be able to pull that off for the obvious reason they both make too much money.
Plot twist: Rudy Gobert for Joel Embiid trade.
He said, "What could go wrong? Everything, everything."
Ant's getting mad when he wants to attack the lane, but you got Julius Randle posting up on one block and Embiid on the other block.
Right.
And your only source of spacing is Jaden McDaniels and Mike Conley. He's probably just leaving at that point. Wemby is cooking. Do you think he's going to win MVP, or just who do you think is winning MVP?
I think when Joker comes back, I still think, to me, right now today, I still think it's Joker and SGA back and forth. I would have said before he went down, I think Joker was in the top spot. This might be the closest MVP race ever, because SGA is going to have his numbers. They're probably going to have the best record in the West. Joker's going to have insane video game like numbers, and they're probably going to be second or third in the West. It's going to be tight. If I was going to give a candidate, you just brought up the name. Yeah, I think Cade Cunningham has a shot, but I love Cade, but he would have to have in more insane numbers than he currently has now. Like, if SGA is going to be the leader of a team that wins 70 games as the repeat champions, and he gives you 36-6 with those efficiency numbers, I don't think Cade beats him. And Joker giving you Wilt Chamberlain numbers, I don't think Cade beats him either. Oh, look, I'm a huge Cade fan. By the way, another guy who I think desperately needs a second option, Cade Cunningham. The Pistons are a top 2 defensive team. They're considered they're a top 7 offensive team, but their offense works the way they play in the regular season. In the postseason, when it becomes more of a walk-up, half-court execution game, they don't have the shooting or the shot creation. Everything is on Cade's shoulders. They desperately need to go out and get a second guy. And I know people keep bringing up Jaden Ivey, but if you've been watching the Pistons, if you've been watching Jaden Ivey, I don't know if he's still being bothered by the injury, but he looks like a shell of himself. He's not really been able to help at all. The Pistons are built to win right now. And if I'm their GM, knowing that we're built to win right now, I would be bold. Another franchise has time to wait. I would move Jaden Ivey for a second scorer. Yeah, no, Jalen Duren has developed into a better offensive player, but your center average at 18 a game is really good. But on a title contending team, Jalen Duren's your third option, not your second option.
I'd say, I think even if he does develop, unless he's developing like an Amari Stoudemire level face-up game, you're still going to need that extra guy on the perimeter that can create for you.
Right.
But of course, if I'm the Pistons, I'm going to say exactly what I do with a lot of young franchises. Don't rush things. You're heading in the right direction. Don't make a bold trade and set your franchise back like the Hawks did with DeJounte Murray. We don't need that.
No, look, I agree, and I'm not anti Jalen Ivey, but I think that they're right there right now, and it's not like Jaden Ivey was a 25-point scorer or anything like that before he got hurt. I love Jalen Duren, but if you think about what he is right now on a title contender, he's a third option. Matter of fact, I would say that right now he's a better, younger version of Bam, right? Isn't he? Isn't he a better, younger version of Bam?
I think Bam will have him beat defensively for a while, but I think he's already better offensively than Bam.
Yeah, but that's my point. I'm just saying Bam does a lot of things really good, but if he's your second best player, you're probably not a title contender.
Bring back Killian Hayes. Hey, I'll never forget what the Tank Commander did for that Pistons team last year. Like the Bam and Duren comp.
Yeah. I think there's some similarities, and I love that Jaden Duren's opened up and shown that he can handle the ball. He can be more of a playmaker, and he's still developing. So he's not a finished product, but I have so much confidence in Cade that if they got a second shot creator, I think they could win the East outright.
No, that's fair enough. Speaking of young players that were talented, Mo, I found this quip very interesting from, of course, LeBron's agent there, Rich Paul, was doing some interviews, and he was asked why he believes Cam Reddish's career didn't work out in the NBA. And he goes, I watched this kid score 50 of the easiest points me and Mav was together. And we like, damn, that looked easy. 6'9", fluid when he got to college with RJ and Zion. He's kind of the third option. That can do something mentally to your confidence. Then you go to the draft. You're supposed to be a top 5 pick. You go to the 10th. You go 10th to a team that took a player you were ranked better than the whole time and in front of you for in DeAndre Hunter. Then you get traded. It's circumstance. I very much disliked it. Okay. He's probably right. It probably did affect Cam Reddish mentally. But at the same time, I feel like a lot of young players should look at this story and really learn from it. You have to be willing to accept a role if you want to play at the next level. And I think that was probably Cam Reddish's biggest flaw, right? I think Cam Reddish had the tools to be a really good role player if he wanted to. I just don't think he ever wanted to. He just wanted to be the guy, and that just completely didn't work out for him.
We talked about this a little bit before the show. Right. So once we're in year 4 and you realize you're not going to be a star, then teams asked you to embrace the role of a 3-and-D guy because of your athleticism, because of your ability to guard multiple positions. And he could do it, but you're right. You could tell he didn't embrace it. He didn't want to be it because in his mind, it felt like a demotion, right? So now I'm not a star. Now you're telling me I'm a role player. Yeah, man. Yeah. And look, sometimes your NBA lot in life is locked in. You're a star or you're a superstar or you're a role player. And sometimes you fall into those lots in life. Cam Reddish, he just didn't. He's one of those guys that everybody can agree has all the talent in the world, but he never could consistently put it together. But I think he had a really good chance to be a great role player and kind of reinvent himself, and he didn't want that.
But talent is talent. You're absolutely right, Chris.
Fact.
Reddish lacked consistency too. Yeah, and I think it's an interesting conversation to have too, because I think this kind of also shows maybe a flaw when a lot of people are analyzing young potential players to get drafted, right? Because a lot of people get enamored by the tough shot making and think that's just going to automatically translate to the NBA level. But I think sometimes they overlook the fact that these tough shot makers, the ones that they're looking for at the top of the league, they also create easy looks for themselves. And I think that's something that Cam struggled with, but it almost feels like a lot of the time in the draft process, tough shot making at a decent volume, it just gets it so some of your other flaws get overlooked. So I just think it's interesting that everybody, started talking about, oh, he's such a good high volumes, he was such a good tough shot maker in college. Yeah, but he didn't create a ton of easy looks for him. So I do think that's the other end of the stick with Cam Reddish and tough shot making is he just didn't know how to generate the easy ones.
Just for the record, is Rich Paul planning on signing him to Clutch Sports?
No.
You know what I mean? Because
yeah.
you're talking so highly of him. So you sign him to Clutch Sports, be his advocate, get him another. Because at some point, Cam Reddish is going to be back in the NBA and he'll get another shot. I have no doubt in my mind. But if you're going to be his advocate, can you get him to wrap his mind around the idea of being? There's nothing wrong with being an elite 3-and-D guy. That's great value, and you can still make a lot of money. I don't understand that. Like I said, that the opportunity to be a star, he was given that opportunity. It just never happened. It's nothing right. Look, there's no right or wrong on something like that. Some guys don't have that dog in him. I think Cam Reddish believes he could be a star. He certainly has all the metrics in terms of his athleticism, his length, and what he could be. But when you get out there on the floor and everybody else is athletic and they want it more than you, and they're more, it just happens. It's the nature of the beast in sports. But to say that, and think about this, Brett, it's not one franchise. Cam Reddish has been to multiple franchises. So multiple franchises believed in his potential, even when they got to the point where they said, look, this is what we want from you. And it didn't work. He played for my Lakers. He was on the Lakers for a little bit. He didn't want it. He just didn't want it. A lot of guys come up short. Matter of fact, this comment right here, Okafor was the same way. Okafor was one of the most skilled big men I've seen in terms of his footwork, his touch, and then he got in the NBA, and you had to compete. You have to want it because there's other dogs that are coming at you, and Okafor had more quit in him than people realized.
No, absolutely, and no, absolutely. I hope he does find his way in the NBA. It's funny that people like balk at the idea of being role players, and I'm like, dude, Tobias Harris has made like a couple $100 million off being a role player, including an $180 million contract. Like
he has had a great career, and
even now with the aprons, like guys like, we see like if you're even semi-young and you think you can be a contributor, guys like Keegan Murray are getting $110 million, and he's not. I don't think he's going to be a star level player. I think he's the epitome of like a really nice 3-and-D role player eventually.
Right. And not a knock on Keegan Murray. He's not going to be a star, but he is a good player. Another example, you're a veteran and you just grind your way into a role and you up your value. Look at Alex Caruso. Not a star, but people realize that he has an impact on winning and he stars in his role. There's nothing wrong with that.
No, absolutely. And I was going to mention this when we were talking about, this guy's also made a ton of money from being a solid role player.
Yeah,
and
yes, he has.
I think Cam Reddish could have done a great Harrison and Barnes impersonation.
Man, Harrison Barnes is a really good name to bring up. Good looking out. I like that one. Not a star, but a really good player that helped teams win. And Harrison Barnes is respected throughout the league because people are constantly saying he's a pro's pro. I'm just saying that there is a certain level of maturity that's required as you weed your way through the pros.
No, absolutely. Of course, I was going to mention this when we were talking about the MVPs and everything, by the way, too. We're looking at a scenario in which obviously it looks like Giannis won't be eligible for MVP. Now it looks like Jokic, who might be out 4 to 6 weeks, might not be eligible for the GOAT from Iowa there. Jokic might not be eligible for MVP. Wemby's might not be eligible for awards. Are we going to get to a point soon where maybe in the next CBAs where players and even owners are like, yeah, maybe we don't need the second aprons, because I think we might get to that point, or at least maybe don't tie these awards in with the contract extensions, because now the owners are going to run into this fun problem where guess what? If let's say these 4 all NBA players are ineligible, 4 guys are going to have to replace them. So now all of a sudden you're looking at, hey, well, I'll use a random example. Maybe someone like who wasn't going to make it before, maybe at the end of the year, Karl Anthony Towns is borderline all NBA, but now we have 4 injuries, so now Cat's in all NBA, and now all of a sudden the owner's staring down the barrel of his agent going, so about that Supermax. So I almost think that, Mo, we might get to a situation with these awards if enough, like, I guess, random players kind of sneak into all NBA, even if it's for a year, kind of like Julius Randle did in 2021, we might see the owners, because it's going to cost them a lot of money, to go, yeah, you know what? Maybe we don't need this whole arbitrary limit and to tie money into these awards.
I think at the next CBA, you're right. I think they've got to find a way to kind of fix that. Because I'm with you. I think it's going to have an odd impact going forward. And you're right. Look, I get the whole 65 game threshold thing where you're like, you got to do that to be eligible for awards or these other accolades. It's a good idea, but they've got to find a way to maybe amend that, because you brought up something, and as I thought about it right now, even in the MVP race, if you're right and Wemby doesn't play enough games, if you're right and because Joker's out for a length of time, is SGA going to repeat as MVP by default because his closest competition, they might all miss too much time to be eligible to be the MVP, right?
And then it kind of feels like, it almost feels like it does diminish the MVP a little bit, because you beat out like Jokic in a close race. You're like, yeah, that was earned. But, you got these injuries, and now all of a sudden, like, you beat Jalen Brunson and Cade Cunningham, who normally would be like 5 and 6 in the MVP race, I guess. Right. Like, congratulations, maybe? Like, it feels like it does kind of diminish the MVP a little bit. I'm just saying, like, if they're so worried about the players making sure they play a certain amount of games, like 65, just bump the season down to 65. Like, if you're so worried about that. And the funny part about this whole thing, too, is voters never really voted for guys who missed a ton of games in the past to all NBA and everything.
Facts.
Like, in the last, 15 years, there's, the only 2 guys who made an all NBA team after missing a ton of games on the first team were, Chris Paul and Giannis. We had, 2 first teamers who played under 65 games in the last, 15 years, and they played, 62 and 63. So
right.
I feel like this whole, 65 things game was a bit, it was a bit much. And I feel like even if they keep this whole, award thing, they might course correct it a little bit and drop the number a little bit, at least at the next CBA.
That's all I'm saying. I just think really take a look at that and be willing to be open for a course correction. Just say we might have auto corrected a little too much. Find a middle ground on that. Because what you don't need in this league that, by the way, you and I are huge fans of, we eat, sleep, ball. But the reality is this: the current NBA, the ratings are down. You've got to find a way to bring fans back. And I believe me, I don't think the answer is trying to fix the All-Star game. I don't even care about the All-Star. I'm talking about the game in general. Because the perception of too many fans are the players are spoiled and they don't want to play. And I don't think that's a blanket statement. I don't think that applies to most players.
No, absolutely. And yeah, that's going to be my frustration, because theoretically, if Jokic, for example, plays 64 games and they try the old, well, he can't win MVP because he didn't play 65. I'm going to be like, 64 games, 60 games of Jokic playing at the level he's playing at is more valuable than pretty much the entire league. So, what are we really doing here? So I'll be curious to see, how they try to correct that at the next CBA, which I think is in 2029.
Yeah. But you know what? Maybe call emergency meeting. and look, Trey and D is right. Kyrie had a 50, 40, 90 season, and they didn't really acknowledge it because he only played 54 games. That's a great point. the NBA has always been a league about stars. If some of your more established stars don't play 65 or 70 games, I don't think you still want to water it down to where you don't shine a light on those stars. That's the whole point. That it's about your stars. It's a star-driven league. And even though you have a great new wave of young up-and-coming talent, there's still some really impactful, productive, established stars putting up numbers. Look, the Warriors aren't world beaters. They're not relevant, but Steph makes them relevant because he's still playing at a incredibly high level. KD is relevant because he's on a Rockets team that's a legitimate title contender. And while the Lakers aren't going to win a title, look, LeBron averaging 27 and 7 at age 41, that's impressive as hell. I don't care what anybody says. Harden giving you 21 and 9 at 36, 37, impressive. Kawhi had 55 just last week, and I believe he's 34, 35. So you can highlight your stars. I just think you have to find the middle ground. Obviously, you want to promote the young and up-and-coming talent, but if the old guard is still there and the old guard is still very productive and competitive, I highlight all my stars, the young and the old. That's the beauty of the NBA. Even now, look at the Sixers. I know Embiid's only 30 years old, but his body's like 45. And Tyrese Maxey has clearly become the star of that team. You can highlight both of them. And I think that's how you bring fans back. I think that's the biggest problem with the NBA right now. The perception that most players don't want to play, or they don't want to play X amount of games, or they don't play hard. That's not true. It's a blanket statement. That's not true. There are some players that feel that way, but I think we should highlight the ones that want to put in the work, that are very competitive. You know who's very competitive? He talks it and then he walks it when he's on the court. Wemby's very competitive. I love that about Wemby. Wemby openly tells guys, I got this guy. I'm going to stop this guy. He can't guard me. Like, I like that. I like that kind of attitude coming from a young up-and-coming guy. We need to put a light on guys like Wemby, up-and-coming guys like Chet, up-and-coming guys like VJ Edgecombe, Cooper Flagg, even the young man out in Utah, who the Jazz are a bad team, but Keontae George is a hooper. If you love basketball, that young man is a hooper. So I don't think there's a lack of talent or a lack of effort. There's just an odd perception that Adam Silver and company, they haven't done a good job of pushing back on. These players do want to play. They do want to compete, and they need to highlight that more.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that second part too, by the way. I do agree that they need to show more personality, but definitely like the broader streaming access. Like, I shouldn't have to buy like 4 different streaming platforms just to watch the NBA. Like, that's just kind of absurd to me.
That is messed up. And that's where we're at too. That's a great point. He said put the Hornets on Christmas Day. You know what? They're a bad team, but I feel like if you put them on Christmas Day, they'd actually play hard.
And I think that's would actually be a hilarious idea. It would be fun because LaMelo's trying to put on a show. So he's either giving you the craziest, like, 50-point game you'll ever see, or the worst 10-turnover game from trying flashy passes all game, or maybe both. But I would love to see I would love to see the Hornets on Christmas Day, just because I know LaMelo would definitely try to show off.
Wow. I didn't even realize that, but that's facts. They're the only team that's never had a Christmas Day. That's crazy. A Christmas Day game. And look, it's not like the Hornets don't have a lot of young talent. They do have a lot of young talent. They just haven't put it all together yet. By the way, shout out to Con Knipple. Knipple has been a hooper. That cat is balling. Like, I thought he'd be good at the next level. He's been better than I thought he would be.
Give the King. Okay, you know what? We can slow down on that one.
Yeah, not the current version of the Kings. I think we want less of them on TV.
Like, the Hornets, I'll take because they actually have some fun, entertaining young players. Like, yeah, I can watch LaMelo, Con Knipple, Brandon Miller. Like, yeah, I can do that. But it's like, here are the Kings. Like, let's highlight their young players. It's like, okay, Keon Ellis, who doesn't really play, Keegan Murray, I guess, and it's like Dominique Clifford, like awesome, I guess.
Yeah, the problem with the Kings is, Jesus Christ, man. Russell Westbrook, DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, Dennis Schroeder. They've got their core now, certainly a bunch of guys that are over 30. That whoever's running that franchise should be fired. How did they go from having both Halliburton and De'Aaron Fox to what they have now? How did you mess that up?
One of my favorite stats of all time is there's only one NBA team who has drafted 3 All NBA point guards in the last decade, and that is the Sacramento Kings.
That's true.
Obviously, the third being Isaiah Thomas.
Yeah. Jesus Christ, man.
Kalkbrenner has been good out of crate. Kalkbrenner's been absolutely terrific.
Look,
I give them all the credit in the world. This is a team that they've drafted right. Kalkbrenner's been terrific, and you know what's funny? I didn't notice this, but I saw a stat earlier that by points per possession, Knippel's one of the best. They said the best rollers, who finish at the highest percentage, and Knippel is on the list. He's one of the best finishers in the league out of the pick and roll, which I found to be utterly hilarious as the roller. So overall, I just think the Hornets need some like creativity and veteran guidance. Like they got to get some vets in that locker room to really bring all the kind of reel everybody in and show them what it's like to win. And they just need some more creativity out of the coaching staff. Get a structure, play within the structure, get everybody like reeled in. It can't be like AAU street ball every night, which a lot of Hornets games seem to almost delve into.
I agree about they desperately need a vet, but I would go a step further. They need to figure out what LaMelo is. Not the obvious thing that he's a talented player who can get buckets, but what is he? Can this is a simple question. We talk about stuff like this all the time. Is LaMelo the kind of guy that can be the best player on a title contender? Is he the kind of guy you can build around? Because to this point, I would say the answer is no. He's incredibly talented, but there's a lot of guys that are incredibly talented that aren't franchise players. I don't think he's a franchise talent. He's not a franchise player.
He just has to like lock in on the right things, it feels like, because he's frustrating because he just settles for a lot of shots he doesn't need to. Like, dude, you are a 6'7" point guard. If he focused more on just getting into the paint, touching the paint, and trying to generate some of these like highly difficult contested threes and step back middies and just layups or drawing and kicking, like LaMelo would be absolutely just a lot better. And that's kind of my frustration with him. It just feels like he settles for a lot of shots that he really doesn't have to. Ball is Morant 2.0. I don't even think he hasn't reached John Morant levels of hype.
That's an interesting one. When I take John Morant right now, the John Morant over LaMelo Ball, because the advantage LaMelo Ball would have is he's a better facilitator, he's a better shooter, and he's a good 6 years younger. And if he played more like it, he's 6'7". You don't even realize like LaMelo's 6'7" because he plays like he's Trae Young's height.
Yeah, LaMelo has a lot of size on Ja. He probably wouldn't, but it is a lot of size. Ja just has a lot more like quickness than him, so it would be an interesting matchup. But I do think LaMelo would win that one very easily.
He should mop Ja because he's 6'7". But between the two of them, Ja's more of a dog. I actually think Ja will win a game of one-on-one because it's not like LaMelo plays defense. Ja's going to get whatever he wants in a game of one-on-one.
And I think LaMelo should, but yeah, the frustrating part with LaMelo to me is would he settle in a game of one-on-one? Because like watching him settle for like middies and one-on-one against Ja would be the most frustrating thing ever. Say, I saw a take, John not beating Trae Young 1v1. That's an interesting one.
That's an interesting one. By the way, when I was doing John Morant I took Trae Young over Ja.
I would pick if I had to pick between the LOL put the bottom. Guess John disagrees. It's interesting. It feels like Ja should be able to take Trae Young 1-on-1, but Trae can't even keep his hair.
Hey, I've been saying that for years. He got hair like Gallagher, right? Am I the only one that noticed that? He got hair just like Gallagher.
No, absolutely. I think the reason Big Edge Ja would have on Trae would just be the fact that Ja could easily get to the rim at will, and I think he can make Trae settle for some more difficult shots. I think size, kind of like how I think it would play a factor in LaMelo versus Ja, would definitely play a factor here too. Like Ja's just bigger than Trae, and I think he could keep him keep him away from the paint a lot easier.
I don't disagree with that. I think he's definitely a better one-on-one player. I took Trae over Ja in the sense that I think he's a better player, not a one-on-one player. I think he's the better player.
Say, Mo, I saw a statement, and I wanted to see and get the chat's reaction on it too, because I thought it was interesting, and I don't agree with it, but I want to see if you agree with it. Somebody commented on a post that was Steve Kerr talking about how they're a fading dynasty, and said, "This version of the Warriors is what it would have looked like if Jordan and company stayed together after '98." I guess my question to you is, how long do you think that's true? Do you think it would have immediately looked rough in '99, or because I think eventually it would have looked rough, but I don't think immediately it would have looked bad.
Yeah, I think Steve Kerr is just talking the talk on that one. Do I think the Bulls win another title? No, but they would have came back and won 50 plus games. They would have been a contender. They would have been probably in the Eastern Conference Finals, but I don't think they win another title. So are they going to look like the Warriors do, like a 500 team? Yeah, I don't think so. I don't see that at all. That's not realistic.
So to be fair, it wasn't cursing. It was like a Twitter user just quote tweeting him and saying that this is what the Bulls would have looked like if they stuck together.
Right. Kerr didn't say it because it doesn't make sense. They had just won 60-something games and won the title. Now, you can tell me they weren't going to four-peat because that's what it would have been, and I agree with that, but they wouldn't have fallen off like the Warriors have.
Do you think the Bulls beat Spurs and Duncan in '99?
That's a hard one to say. Let me put it this way. The Spurs beat the Knicks in 6 games, correct?
Yeah.
Knicks aren't better than the Bulls. That version of the Knicks ain't better than the Bulls. So I think that would be a great series. What wouldn't change it, the Bulls would not have a matchup for Tim Duncan, but there wouldn't be a matchup for the ball guy either. So I think that would be a great series. I would say this, that could go 7. That could have gone 7. Remember, as great as Tim Duncan was, this was still Tim Duncan coming up. He didn't have Manu and Tony. You play the Bulls, and the first thing they realize is you ain't got no shooters with the way they play defense. Yeah, they're gonna double and triple team Tim Duncan and go, we'll live with Avery Johnson taking jump shots. I'm just saying, I think the Bulls defense will be the difference in that series.
It's funny because I don't think that the Bulls would have beaten the Spurs, and I do think they make it back, but I don't think they beat the Spurs, and I think the X factor is the Admiral. I think Rodman was already starting to fade in that last championship run, and we kind of saw it after. I think you would have needed to flip him, and you would have needed a big upgrade at the center position. Because I just don't think, your band of bigs that you had at the time was going to really be able to slow down MJ and slow down David Robinson and Timmy. I think MJ makes that series go to like 6 or 7, but I think the size of the Spurs front court would have just overwhelmed what the Bulls had in '98.
Yeah, see, that's what I would have said. It's a 50 game. Remember, it's a 50 game season. It's a sprint. I actually think that favors the older Bulls team. They would have been fine. The Knicks didn't have anything like Allen Houston is a really good basketball player. No hate, great shooter. But he wasn't like remotely in Michael Jordan's neighborhood. And I like Latrell Sprewell. Sprewell's a great athlete, but he couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat. Couldn't shoot. Larry Johnson was an undersized power forward who was past his prime. The Knicks, first of all, let's establish something. That Knicks team, they weren't even supposed to be there. They were the 8th seed. They weren't even supposed to be there. People forget. The 8th seed took them to a 6-game series. I don't see how the Spurs win that series. I don't. I don't, because Tim Duncan's not guarding Michael Jordan. David Robinson's not guarding Michael Jordan. And nothing they do slows down what he does. I think that it would have been a great series. And it's funny because I just said I didn't think the Bulls would go that they would four-peat. But if that would have been the matchup, because every season would have played out differently, right? Had the Bulls repeated or decided to come back one more time, maybe the whole season plays out differently. But I do remember this when Dennis Rodman and David Robinson were teammates. Dennis Rodman used to get into David Robinson, who by far is a much bigger man, but what's inside your chest doesn't have anything to do with everything else. So I don't know that Robinson dominates Dennis Rodman because I think Dennis Rodman gets into Robinson's head. The issue would be Duncan. I don't think David Robinson would be the issue. David Robinson is not scoring 18, 19 points, even on that version of Dennis Rodman. And by the way, that version of David Robinson, he wasn't scoring 18, 19 points then. That was David Robinson, the 14 or 15 points per game guy. So you could get away with that with a 6'5", 6'6" power forward, Larry Johnson and Marcus Camby. I think that's a completely different thing when you're playing against the Bulls. I don't know who wins that series, but the fact that the Knicks, who's an 8th seed, can take you to 6, why wouldn't I think the Bulls would have a chance to win that?
You know what? That's that's fair. The thing with I do agree with this. I do think that Jordan would have got Olajuwon once in the 2 years he was gone, but I do think with Drexler, the Rockets win, Longley and Weddington would have been a lunch meat for Tim Duncan. I think that's kind of the problem. I think the Bulls could have still been competitive because I don't see a reason why they couldn't make the NBA Finals for the next 4 years if they continue to adapt. Do I think they could have beaten the Knicks in an Eastern Conference Finals? Yes. Could they beaten the Pacers? Yeah, sure. Could they have beaten, Philly? Could they have beaten the Nets? Yeah. I mean, why not? There's still ample opportunity for him to get there, but I think without upgrading your bigs, it wouldn't have mattered because then I don't think you have an answer for Tim Duncan. Then obviously after that, coming out of the West, you really don't have an answer for Shaq. So
right, but remember they played Shaq. They beat Shaq. You know what I'm saying? They beat Shaq. It's not like they haven't played Shaq. The penny Shaq Magic won 60 games, and they swept them. You know what I'm saying? That's what makes the Bulls unique. They destroyed them. Matter of fact, they beat the most athletic version of Shaq, the freakish athletic version of Shaq. They destroyed them in 4 games. And everybody goes, well, you would kill Weddington. Everybody kills Longley and Weddington. They couldn't guard Patrick Ewing. They couldn't guard, but their job is not to stop them. Their job is to use their fouls. That was their job.
See, imagine how close we were to the Kobe and Shaq versus Jordan and Pippen final. Yeah, like I said, if Jordan and them stuck around one more year, or a couple more years, I definitely think it was a realistic outcome. It could have happened.
The Lakers would have won.
Yeah,
the Lakers would have won. Because now you'd have been talking about 37-year-old Mike trying to mess with 20. Kobe would have eaten Mike alive, and Shaq. Shaq's killing everybody on the Bulls front line. I don't even think that's a good series.
Say it, and I say it. It would be interesting. I think what makes it harder too is when you start adding in guys like Robert Horry, D-Fish that can space the floor like they do. Like, you can't even really cheat off of one guy because they surrounded Shaq and Kobe with some really good shooters.
No, that's fact. Reggie Miller's and look, but it's Michael Jordan that kept Reggie Miller at the finals, and then Jordan was gone, and Reggie Miller made it to the finals. By the way, a lot of people forget that series was actually a really good series. The Lakers didn't dominate that series; they beat the Pacers in 6. That was a great series. It's one of my favorite series because Kobe puts on an all-time great performance. People forget that in that game when Shaq fouled out in overtime and everybody thought the Pacers had it, the kid steps up at age 21 and dominates the overtime and gets the win. But that was actually a great series.
No, absolutely. We were so close to a couple of dream finals that never happened. Of course, there was that one. We were this close to LeBron versus Kobe in 2009. That would have been a fun one. I think the Lakers would have taken that one home pretty handedly, but unless if Mo Williams or somebody's going on a heater of a lifetime.
I would have loved to have seen that matchup. I think everybody thought we were going to get that matchup, and it just didn't happen. I guess that's another fun thing about when we're talking hoops or any kind of sports for that matter, the great hypothetical matchups, because they play out differently. I can only go off of what I know you did versus what I think you would do.
No, that's fair enough. Poor Sam Perkins. Yeah, you know what? Fair. Played in 3 finals on 3 different teams.
Maybe Sam Perkins is the reason. Sam Perkins is the kryptonite. No, I'm kidding. Look, the big Smooth was actually a really good role player. He actually started for the Lakers, but that was a completely different Laker team. They weren't Showtime. That was the nickname for them back then was Slow Time.
You know what's funny? You know who was almost an underrated player from that Cavs and Magic series, Mo? We all remember, people like Rashard Lewis, Hedo Turkoglu. People forget that Michael Petrus shot 47%.
I knew it. That's why we knew the show. I knew you was going to say Michael Petrus. I knew you was going to say Michael Petrus. And Michael Petrus played great defense, by the way. Yeah, you're right. Facts.
Let's say that man just turned into an absolute flamethrower from 3. And the funny part is, it's not like he took a little bit. He took the most on the team in that series. And he just couldn't miss. Him and Rashard Lewis just couldn't miss. And I think
could not.
I think Hedo was the worst out of the 3 mentioned. He was hitting at 39%. People talk about Dwight Howard knocked LeBron out of the finals. He was a big part of it, but I also think that people just don't understand truly how hot the Magic got from deep in that series because it was just absurd.
And they're not. And look, they had a good shooting team with Turkoglu, Rashard Lewis, Petrus. Jameer Nelson had an all-star season that particular season. They had dudes, but nobody saw Michael Petrus coming in there looking like the second coming of Ray Allen. The guy didn't miss. I remember that series. What the funny thing is about that series is JJ Redick doesn't remember that series. And he was in the series and he don't remember that series. Remember he's doing the podcast with LeBron and he's like, people forget how good we were, the Magic were. We had Petrus and Rashard Lewis and Hedo, and we had Jameer Nelson. Somebody had to remind JJ Redick, bro, Jameer didn't play in that series. He was hurt. How you on the team and didn't know that?
No, that's fair enough. Yeah, it was I always love it. It's one of my favorite things to watch happen, Mo, when the role players all of a sudden just start heating up. It's fun till it happens to your team. Rafer Alston played. You're right. Rafer Alston was there too.
Right.
No,
because Jameer didn't play. Right. Because Jameer didn't play.
That's fair enough. Like I said, one of my favorite things watching role players heat up, unless it's against your team, because watching Grant Williams go for 9 threes in a finals game or in a playoff game was brutal. Follow that up with the shooting that Watching Duncan Robinson shoot
75%
from three against us the following year was even worse. So,
I think we've all felt that kind of pain. I felt it the year the Lakers played the Celtics in the finals, and I think it's 2008, and Leon Powe couldn't be stopped. Who the hell is Leon Powe? And why couldn't we stop Leon Powe? And Eddie House didn't miss. At least not against us, he didn't miss. Like, their bench destroyed our bench.
It's funny. One of my favorite games to go back and watch is still Rockets Clippers from the 2015 playoffs at Game 6. Because genuinely watching Josh Smith, it was Corey Brewer and Jason Terry, and there was I think there was a Donatas Montezuma and Terrence Jones 3 splashed in there. But watching those three just lead a comeback down 19 was incredible.
Brett, is that the game where Harden is on the bench?
Yeah. And Josh Smith turns into an absolute flamethrower in the fourth.
Yeah. I always was a big admirer of Josh. I'll admit it. I will admit I got caught up in Josh Smith's potential because of what he could have been. But what he actually was kind of an underachiever. But that particular game, for that particular game in that moment, Josh Smith looked like a god.
Yeah, I'll say before we get out of here, Mo, I'd say our Paulo Banchero agendas might be cooked. He has maybe the greatest slander name I have ever heard. I love Paulo, but I also hate that they gave him such a good name to slander him. Did you hear what it is?
What is it called?
His haters call him PB No J.
Come on.
And I'm I want to defend Paulo, but that is such an excellent name that it's perfect. It's funny because it's been true lately, and I'm I can't even be mad at that. That's just terrific.
It is funny because it's true. And look, everybody in the chat, Brett and I keep it 1,000. Before the season, we both projected that Paolo would be an MVP candidate. We thought he would have that type of season. So I don't mind taking the L or getting cooked because he's had arguably, not even arguably, he's had a disappointing season. And this isn't me saying Paolo's not going to be a star or not going to one day be an MVP, but clearly he still needs to kind of refine his game. And between him and Franz Wagner, they've got to find a way to play together.
No, absolutely. Anything you want to add before we get up on out here, Mo?
No, I'm just really grateful for the chat. This is a very knowledgeable chat, and I love that. These guys said some things that kept us engaged. They kept the show even funner. So everybody in the chat, appreciate you guys. God bless you. Have a happy new year.
Absolutely. And if there's ever any topics you want us to touch on any show, you can follow the And One Podcast on Facebook and, reach out there. We don't mind ever talking about anything you guys want us to talk about. And you can catch Mo and I. We have a big show coming up. If you're a fan of professional wrestling, next week, our Meaty Boys Awards show. We posted a Google form as well on the Wire to Wire page. If you want to vote for the winner of those awards, go ahead and do so. So that being said, we thank you guys for tuning in. It was a lot of fun, and we hope to see you next time.
Thank you for tuning in to the And One Podcast. If you like our content, you can find more on the Wire to Wire Podcast Network on YouTube, Facebook, and Spotify. Want more And One? Find it on Wire to Wire. Like and share our Facebook page, and join the And One Discord. Grab the link to join from our Facebook. Thank you for tuning in, and have a wonderful day.